That's Retro Fandango. That's Retro Fandango. When it's Android over iPhone and you can keep your stupid amiibo and always bashing on Nintendo. But that's Retro Fandango. That's Retro Fandango. Thanks, Retro Fandango. Wow!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Retro Fandango, episode number 253. Why is my tag over my face? I have to adjust my tag.
Well, you extended it again.
I did.
You had the Canadian grooves off before.
There we go. Now people can see my wonderful face, and
Derek
can make memes of me doing this, because I guess I do this sometimes when my beard is itchy. So I'm Kevin. That's Richard. Richard lives in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
America's number one enemy in 1945.
True.
And I'm here in Ontario, Canada. America's number one enemy in 2025.
Hey.
Now, why was Japan America's number one enemy? Some say it was because they bombed Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
We could debate on whether or not the American ignored early warning signs intentionally because they needed something to get the American people motivated to fight in World War II. We could debate that, but it is what happened. Now, what did Canada do in 2025 to become America's number one enemy? I would like to know. Does anyone have the answer? Anyone out there? Anyone?
I don't think we have anybody in there yet.
Oh.
But if there were people there, they'd have answers.
You think so?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of made up answers. I mean,
oh my goodness.
Oh, sorry. Did I speak too loud?
Well, you're doing that Star Wars droid thing again.
Oh.
I don't know if it comes through in the recording. Maybe it's just over here.
You know what? I need to calm down, so I'll just add some Canadian Club here to my drink
Are
here.
you boozing up already?
I'm boozing up, man. I'm done. I'm giving up. Even though this booze, this is Canadian, so it is Canadian Club Classic. Just ignore the dust on here. This was it is a whiskey though, so I could tell. Although it was bottled in Walkerville, Ontario, the whiskey itself is from Kentucky. Because I don't think you can have I don't think you can call it whiskey unless it's made in Kentucky. I think that's the rule. Anyways,
I don't know how that works.
What do you mean you don't know how it works?
Well, it's like you say it's from Kentucky but bottled in Canada.
Yep.
So what do they just send it up in a big barrel and then you guys pour it into bottles?
Then we bottle it. Yeah.
I don't understand that.
So whiskey the rules of making whiskey, and this is actually one of the things that Canadians can fight back on, because this thing that that doesn't make sense. It's one of those rules that we all agree on because somebody just made it up and we all said, okay, that's what we're going to do. So one of the rules of making whiskey is that whiskey, in order for it to be called whiskey, needs to be made in America. More specifically, Kentucky. Most of it is made in Kentucky, but it needs to be made in America. Same as champagne. That's why Trump was saying he was going to put tariffs on American champagne. There's no such thing as American champagne. Champagne has to be made in France. It's just a rule that we all agreed on. That's in order for you to call it whiskey, it needs to be made in America. In order for you to call it champagne, it needs to be made in a specific area in France, by the way. I can't remember. I think it's Champagne, France or something. I don't know. So that is one of the things that Canada can do to fight back. See, this is the thing with Americans. They're all so stuck in their own bubble. They're all just sitting there. I don't even think most Americans can see 10 feet past what's in front of them. Most, not all. Got some good Americans out there. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about, the guy next to you or whomever.
Okay.
Are you okay? Is God coming down upon you there?
It's just like extremely dark suddenly.
Maybe
Well, there we
there's
go.
maybe there's American SWAT team coming in on you. How dare you're talking to the enemy? Get out
I
of
do
there,
this.
Richard.
It brightens up.
The call is coming from inside the house.
My goodness, how much have you had already?
Nothing. Boy, this has aged pretty well. It's very tasty. Anyways, what was I talking about? What was I blathering on about? I don't remember.
Something about Canada and America.
Anyways, yeah, stuff needs to be made in certain areas. But one of the things, and Americans, they can't see too far in front of themselves. And one of the things that Canadians can do is we could just start ignoring intellectual property. The only reason we adhere to all American intellectual property laws is because we're nice. We think it's a good idea to, okay, yeah, sure, Americans, you made this thing or made that thing or whatever. We'll adhere to your intellectual property laws. So like, for instance, just busting into an Xbox at one point was like a bad idea. You weren't allowed to do that. That was Microsoft's intellectual property. You couldn't just open it up, take a look inside, copy everything, and make your own version of an Xbox. Well, those are your rules, America. They're not Canada's rules. So we can just start making our own Xboxes. We could start making, I don't know, what's Frozen? Let's say the Disney movie Frozen. Those are American intellectual property laws. We could just start making our own Frozen movies. Will they be as good? I don't know. But we could certainly flood the market with stupid Frozen movies. We could do whatever we want. We don't have to adhere to your laws. We do because we're nice. But when you start picking on us, we don't stay nice. That's just one of the things. There's many things we could do. So what else do you want to talk about? I got two things I want to talk about. I'll tell you, they don't have anything to do with movies or video games or anything. I cannot look past what's going on right now. Yesterday I had the premier of my province, which is basically, if you're an American, that's a governor of your state. But I had the premier of my province who forever, since I was a little kid, has been completely ignored by Americans. Nobody cared about who the heck the premier of Ontario is. I will give a cookie if there's an American out there, born and raised in America. You didn't live in Canada for any point. If you could tell me who Mike Harris is, I will give you a cookie. I will ship it to you. I will pay the shipping for it.
I would really like a cookie right now.
Well, I would, if you could tell me who Mike Harris is. Cannot. Yeah, because traditionally, Americans have completely ignored let alone who the prime minister is. But the premier of my province was in the White House yesterday, trying to talk the American president's goons out of having this stupid trade war with us. And it's funny, like all these goons like Ludnick and Peter Navarro, they're all on American networks saying, Canada, settle down. Enough with this elbows up business. Enough with this rhetoric. Enough with shutting off our electricity. You should calm down. And all the dummy, stupid media is like, yeah, why isn't Canada taking more of a soft approach like Mexico is? Mexico's taking a very soft approach. They're very gentle with Trump, and they seem to be able to work things out. And why doesn't Canada do the same thing? How many times, can you tell me how many times Trump has said that he will annex Mexico? Can anyone tell me?
You got
Anyone?
me.
Anyone? It's a big fat. It's the same number of people that are watching this right now. It's a big fat 0. That's why Canada is upset. You want to talk about tariffs? You want to sit down at the table and we could discuss things? You want to renegotiate our free trade? Sure, we'll sit down and talk with you. We'll figure it out. There's something bothering you about the deal? Let's figure it out. But to do this is just asinine. And it gets repeated over and over again. I mean, I'm sitting there. I'm watching the president of the United States yesterday talking about how he's going to annex Canada. And there's zero shock in my system. I'm not shocked at all because I'm becoming accustomed to it. I'm just like numb to it now. I'm just like, yeah, I guess this is what's going to happen now. America is going to try to come in and take over my country. It's bizarre. It's weird. It's not normal. And that's why I've been very vocal about this. That's why this subject is going to completely take over this show. That's why probably Richard's going to want to have nothing to do with me in a few weeks. Give it about 2 or 3 more episodes. He'll be like, okay, enough. I got to split because I cannot look at anything else right now. It's just right there. I can't sit. I haven't been able to watch a movie. You want to know the movies I watched? Let me tell you the movies I watched lately. Okay, well, first of all, I watched The Royal Tenenbaums because Gene Hackman
that
died.
has nothing to do with Canada. What are you talking about?
Well, Gene Hackman died. Respect to Gene Hackman. And it was February 27th. So February 27th was like a lifetime ago. Like we're 60 days into this Trump administration. It feels like a decade of crap has been handed over to us.
Hey, look what you did. You woke up Kyle with all your political talk.
All right. Good job, Kyle. Nice to see you. Kyle is one of the good Americans. He's one of the good ones. I know it. I know it because I interact with him on Blue Sky. And if you're a good American, you're on Blue Sky. Let me tell you. No bad
Blue
people.
Sky?
Blue Sky is where all the libertards like myself have jumped ship from X or Twitter or whatever. And we're on Blue Sky now. And that's where we discuss politics. I haven't given up completely on X because I don't want this crap that's going on right now to ever become normal. I don't want this to be normal. This is not normal. And that's why I've decided to speak up. I've decided to start talking about this more because I can't be complacent with this. I can't be like everything's fine. I'm going to just stick my head in the sand and pretend nothing's going on. I just can't do it. It's too crazy. Kyle does show up for Star Trek talk. That's true. He is our Star Trek guy. He's the guy we're talking to when we talk about Star Trek.
Good job, Kyle. You just reminded me of something.
And I don't feel like as if I am gotten more political. I don't. My posts, I don't think are political. I am raging against what is happening right now. The stupidity that is happening right now. And the things I'm afraid of is that, well, first of all, America is just in a complete oligarchy takeover. It is just there. Democracy is on its way out the door in the United States. And I wish I was speaking with hyperbole, but I don't think I am. They are doing everything they possibly can to completely take over. And, the way that I'll talk about the way that he's done, how he's trying to do this. It's all there in history. History is just an indicator of what's happening right now. It's insane. We'll talk about it a little bit. But anyways, I wanted to ask Richard. Okay. So yeah, I watched The Royal Tenenbaums. I watched Idiocracy. Can you guess why I watched that movie?
Oh gosh, it makes sense.
The other
I've actually been meaning to rewatch that.
Me too, and I did. And the other movie I watched was Canadian Bacon.
Oh, okay. A Michael Moore joint.
Michael Moore joint about America setting up a fake war against Canada.
Is that what it was
Because
about? I
that's what
remember
it was
watching
about.
it and not really getting into it too much.
You know,
It's been a while.
I had never been a huge fan of Canadian Bacon. It was like, you know, a 3-star movie. Really appreciate John Candy and some of the stuff in it, but it's really Michael Moore's attempt to do a here I am talking about movies. I said I wouldn't talk about movies. But it's Michael Moore's attempt to do a Doctor Strangelove kind of film.
Okay.
You know, political satire kind of deal.
Hmm.
Watching it now, it takes on a completely different meaning, man. It is eerie how some of the things transcend to what is happening today. But those were the 2 movies I watched. I also did watch No Other Land, which was the documentary that won Best Documentary at the Oscars, which is a hard watch, but an important watch. But anyways, there you go.
No Other Land. That sounds familiar. I think it's actually playing in a theater around here.
Yeah, it's well, if you want to know what it's about a Palestinian people, you know, just a village of about 50, 100 Palestinians that are they're out in Israel. They're living on this hunk of land. This hunk of land has been, according to them, it's been on the map as where they've lived since like the mid 19th century. They've been there for a long time. And the Israelites just decided, hey, that hunk of land there, the army needs that for training exercises. So everybody who lives here has to go. And, you know, these people are just like, well, what are you talking about? This is my house and all that stuff. You know, all my stuff is here. I'm not going anywhere. It's because the army all of a sudden decides that they need to do military training here. That doesn't make any sense. So eventually it gets to the point where the Israel army comes in and they just start knocking down their houses. So they start rebuilding their homes. Then the army comes in and knocks them down again. So then they started building them at night, getting them up as quickly as possible. The army comes in and knocks them down again. They even tried to have the women start building stuff during the day, and then the men would get up at night and finish stuff off. Army comes and knocks all their stuff down again. Pushes them into caves. Eventually, they're living in caves. They don't want to leave this land. And then eventually, the whole shooting happened, and that just got everybody all freaked out. And you know what shooting I'm talking about, right? The big one, right?
No, because I've never seen this movie.
Well, there was no, it's the shooting in Israel that got like basically everybody all. Oh, so there was like, you know, there was like these kids, these Jewish kids that were at some event in you know, part like a music festival, and Palestinians showed up and shot them. So that just got everybody freaked out. Now you're talking like now they're not just facing the army, they're facing like regular Israelis with guns that are going in there and telling them to get out. One guy shoots another guy. It's a complete mess. Anyways, you're watching this movie and you're just watching propaganda at its finest, doing its thing. You know, these people they're living in these homes and the army's coming in, knock them down. And, you know, we're just talking farmers here, and they're getting into these soldiers' faces, and they're like, how can you do this? I wouldn't do this to your family. They're trying to reason with them, you know, trying to talk to them one-on-one. You know, like, can you imagine if someone did this to your grandmother's home or whatever, you know? Soldiers just stand there. This is the law. I have the law with me. I'm not doing the wrong thing as long as I have the law with me. That's propaganda. Drill that into their heads enough times. People are willing to do the most horrendous things. And that's what's happening in the United States right now. It is you know, evil is not the problem in the United States. It's stupidity. Stupidity is completely taken over the United States. Not just in the White House, not just his goons, but all the people that support him blindly. The capacity for critical thought, for critical thinking, just seems to be out the window. Nobody seems to be able to think for themselves, wonder like what the truth is on anything. It's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
Well, that's why we got people like Kyle.
Kyle is one. Look, it's not everybody. Kyle has empathy. All right. Even if Kyle isn't the smartest guy in the world, he might be. I don't know. I don't know Kyle that well. I just know him that he's a sweet guy on the internet. But he has empathy. He doesn't just sit there and look 10 feet in front of him. He thinks about his next door neighbor. He thinks about what other people are going through. That's the fundamental difference between Canadians and Americans. Americans are all about competition. Who's going to be number one? Who's going to get the most money? If you're number two, you're last. But that's not Canada. Canadians are cooperation. Most of us. Unless you're a trucker in that stupid convoy, forget those guys. But they're a small fringe minority. Majority of Canadians are all about cooperation.
You're
That's
a
why
collectivist society.
Well, look, even if we don't get things right, and we don't always get things right, we strive to do the right thing. That's why we have gun control laws here. Because when there's a shooting that happens, we say, well, what can we do about it? Well, these handguns are out of control. Let's get rid of these handguns. We don't really need them. In America, it's like, why should I give up my handguns because somebody else got shot? I'm doing all the right things. You can't make that little sacrifice to say, well, maybe I'll shoot some different guns. Healthcare. People are going poor because they are sick and dying. And America's like, well, that shouldn't cost me anything because my neighbor broke his leg. Why should I pay for that? It actually saves your economy. It actually makes better. When your neighbors are healthy and strong, it actually makes you stronger. But they can't see. That's 10 feet past their vision. They can't see it. And even if it is right in their face, even if the TV is like right there in their face, 10 feet in front of them, and they're seeing something like January 6th, that's those people. It's got nothing to do with me down here. I'll be fine here.
I like that all of your Americans are like crotchety old prospectors.
Yeah. That stems from a Heritage Minute. It's a brilliant Heritage Minute. You should check it out. It's about this American. So Heritage Minutes were like these little 1 minute films that were made that we would run as Canadian content.
You mentioned those
Canadian
before.
television.
Are they on YouTube?
Oh yeah, they're all on YouTube. And there's this one. It's about this American who it takes place in the 1800s, and it's about this American who's coming up to the Klondike to get gold, and he's coming in with his handguns and his gambling equipment and all that. And he's going to the Klondike. Well, an RCMP officer, or as Americans might know, a Royal Canadian Mounted Policeman, we call them RCMP officers here, stops him, drags him into meet the head honcho. I'm blanking on his name right now, but brings him in, and the head guy's like, yeah, you can't come through Canada with this gambling gear and these guns. And the American's like, I'm not going to Canada. I'm going to the Klondike. The guy's like, Klondike is in Canada. Well, I don't care. I'm an American. He gets up and he points his gun at him. 2 guns, 2 pistols. And the head guy, Canadian guy, just looked at him and said, I'm going to confiscate your guns, and I'm confiscating this gambling gear, and you're getting out of here. So then the next shot is the guy being led out of Canada, and it's the guy, why didn't I shoot him? Why didn't I shoot him? It's a great Heritage Minute. Just stared him down. Try it, buddy.
I'm gonna watch for you. They got one on Superman.
Yep.
What's that about?
Superman was half created by a Canadian.
Right.
That's right. Yep. It's some guy created, and I don't know. I don't know if he was the animator or the guy that came up with the concept, but one half of the team was Canadian.
Mm. Does he get anything out of it? Do you get paid royalties?
Me?
No, the guy.
Oh, I'm sure he did. I think he's half the creator. Like if you see like Superman created by
Oh, so it's not like a. Oh yeah,
Joel.
yeah. J
No,
something.
he's
Somebody
one.
with a J name.
No, it's Joel something. Joel.
Okay,
Joel,
as
go
long as he
speak to
wasn't
your
like
cousin
conned out of
Antoine.
his idea.
No. Nope. I haven't even look 25 minutes in, and I haven't even got to the two things I want to talk about. So, anything you want to talk about?
Well, I'm ready. You can go ahead. I don't think I'm gonna derail your train of thought here.
Listen, I can't apologize. I'm
You don't
raging
have to
right now.
apologize.
Raging. Okay.
You are. I am 100% with you. By the way, I totally feel for you because
Well,
this
thank you.
is a ridiculous situation. I wish I were more awake. I'd be able to articulate myself a bit more.
You're doing just
My
fine. You're
brain
saying all
doesn't
the right words.
function that well. I almost bought some cookies. I was going to buy some Canadian exports to help you guys out
Oh,
with my
thanks.
box of cookies.
Thanks.
I couldn't find any for a good price.
Well, as far as I know, there's no tariffs on Japan. As far as I know. And all these tariffs, retaliatory tariffs. Every time he gets worked up, by who I mean by he, about these tariffs, they're retaliatory.
Are you going to start doing the Stephen Colbert thing where you just refuse to mention his name?
Nah, I just don't feel like it right now. I'll mention his name. Donald fucking Trump. How's that? Elbows up, Canada. Fuck Donald Trump. All right. So the first thing I wanted to mention, I want to know how well Americans really know American history. Americans pride themselves on knowing American history. This whole thing here is going to hinge on this question that I have for Richard. And maybe he'll shock me and I'll be just like, okay, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh no, I think you're going to get the answer you're looking for.
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I tried to look this up online to see how well Americans know this, and I got a little bit of a okay. Americans pride themselves on knowing history, but Richard, do you know who Polybus is?
Polybus?
Polybus. Polybus. Polybus.
Yeah.
No, don't look it up online.
That is the name of a person?
That's such an American thing to do. I'll just look it up online.
Well, that's what you do. When you don't know something, you research.
So you don't know.
Do you continue? I have no idea.
My point is made.
Americans I knew it would be.
Think they know history.
Not me.
But they really don't. They don't even
generalizing.
They know what the schools tell them to know. That's what Americans know. They don't research. They don't look at stuff.
Research it right now.
Most of them. But you wouldn't know who Polybus is unless I told you. Polybus was a Greek philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
And he was born during the Hellenistic period of the Greek Empire. Meaning he was like at the peak of the Greek Empire. And while he was born into it, and he was born, wealthy, he was born into a rich family. During his lifetime, the first 50 or so years of his life, he watched let's see. Kyle's asking, he wants to know is that not the secret arcade game that adds some sort of secret mind control built in? No, it's not No, that's not what Polybus is. But that's a good guess. It does sound like something. It might be. I don't know. Actually, they might have used his name for that game. I don't know. But that's not where I'm going. So in his lifetime, he saw the Roman Republic come in and completely dismantle his empire.
Hmm.
He was actually taken because he was a little more high to do, well to do. He wasn't killed right away, and he was brought into the Roman Republic and sort of made. He was allowed to live with a more wealthy family, kind of like when Americans and the Allies and that during World War II kind of took all the German scientists and said, like, you're going to start making stuff for us now. That's sort of what the Roman Republic did with all these Greek philosophers. So the question that Polybus had was he could not figure out why the Roman Republic, which was not as sophisticated, not as enlightened as the Greek empire was at the time. And he wanted to know how this Roman Republic could not only easily come in and take over everything that he grew up loving and all that, and everything that, was drilled into him as this great stuff, how they could just easily come in and take it all over. And so he started doing some research, and he couldn't understand. He wanted to know, he asked the question how the Roman Republic could survive for so long, right? Because before that, there were many, many kings that would just, come and go so fast, right? So how did the Roman Republic basically break the cycle that he came up with? It was a cycle that he came up with. Came up with the 7 stages of government. So the first stage is anarchy, right? People just there's just a bunch of people all over, and they're all living by their own set of rules and whatnot and all that. They're not organized in any sort of way. That's the first stage of government. The second stage of government is kingship. A strong leader emerges, brings order and direction. Everybody follows the king. The third stage is tyranny, because the king, while he earned this leadership role, traditionally would, pass down his leadership to his children or to a family member or whatever. And this would lead to tyranny, where these children didn't really appreciate how their father came, or might have been mother, but generally father, came into power and all that, and always grew up wealthy in that. So they're just completely disconnected from the people. So they start ruling the people with more of an iron fist. Eventually the people reject this, overthrow the tyrants, and now you have an aristocracy. I think I'm saying that right. Aristocracy, where the people have some of the power, have some of the say, and they start creating a government where there are some little bit of checks and balances and stuff like that, but then eventually that kind of degenerates into an oligarchy, where the oligarchy just corrupts the system. So then people overthrow the oligarchy, it becomes a democracy. The people who overthrow try to create a democracy, but then eventually the democracy degrades as people become more and more corrupt in the democracy. You get leaders that promise things to people that they can't actually give them. They start taking more and more, skimming more and more. So eventually you fall into mob rule, stage 7, mob rule. And these 7 stages, what is Kyle saying here? Is he making fun of me? Kevin sure knows how to wake Richard up there. Well, my point is that his 7 stages of government, he believed that this was a cycle that was continued on with but the Roman Republic was able to break this cycle, because during the democracy stage, they formed a more organized government with checks and balances. So there was the people, the Senate, and something called the consuls. Does that sound familiar? A government with checks and balances? Was that a yes? You kind of fizzled out there.
Yeah,
a
I'll
yes?
give you a yes.
Okay. Anyone? I know I'm getting like very Ben Stein here, but let just follow me with this. All right. I won't be too much longer. But that's so this person, Polybus, is who guess who were big fans of Polybus? Guess. Anyone? The founding.
Is it the new founding fathers from the
Oh,
Purge series? Are you looking to talk about the Purge? Because I
no,
did watch that.
no,
No?
no. The founding fathers of the United
Mm.
States of America were huge
Mhm.
fans of him. Now, the thing that they didn't realize is that Polybus had all these great ideas and all that, but he lived during a time when the Roman Republic was at the height of its popularity, at the height of its power. And he died before the Roman Republic fell and became the Roman Empire. So he didn't see any of that stuff. So this whole idea that these founding fathers framed this constitution and all this stuff and everything is just, this great grand experiment and all this stuff has been done before. It's all been done before. And it's failed before. And it's up to the people to actually educate themselves and figure out a way to keep things together. Because if they don't, you're just going to fall like the Roman Empire did, like every other empire did. That's my point there. That's it. Was that exciting or what?
Oh, yeah. Everybody go look up Polybus. All you ignorant Americans out there that love your history.
That's what they should be teaching. That's what they should be teaching.
I don't doubt that there's some merit to it.
I mean,
I don't remember that in my fourth grade history class.
Instead of putting these founding fathers up on a pedestal and saying that they're so great and everything, I'm not saying what they like, everything they like, they didn't have some good ideas and good influence and good, but instead of like realize that they were human beings, flawed human beings that were following basically some flawed logic that needs to be worked and looked at all the time. It's not something that you could just like push off into the corner and say, yeah, it's going to be fine. It was good back then and it'll always be good. It's something you have to continuously work at, continuously change, continuously adapt. And it seemed like as if people back, there used to be amendments to the Constitution all the time. It seemed like as if people understood that. And now stupidity is just completely taken over. You can't change that document. It's sacred. It's not sacred. It never is. It never was. The people who wrote it didn't think it was sacred. It's dumb. So that's where you are right now. You're in the cycle, man. You guys are in the cycle. You are in the democracy cycle, and you're heading down the mob rule cycle. Because what Trump is doing right now, and I'm going to say two buzzwords, but before you get excited, don't get too excited. This is the second thing I want to talk about. Before you get too excited, I don't mean it like you think you think I mean it. Okay? But what Trump is doing is following what Adolf Hitler and the Nazis did in the 1930s. Now, I'm not saying, I could see Richard's eyes rolling. I'm not saying like Zelensky. I'm like Trump and you're like
Accuse me of my eye movement.
I'm not saying that Trump is gearing up to exterminate people, any Jews or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying what Trump admires is the way Hitler grabbed power and held on to it. And he did it. He's doing it the exact same way as Hitler did it in the 1930s. And I lost my page. Oh my goodness. Can't believe this.
So which were the two buzzwords?
Hitler. Oh, there's my page. And Nazis. People get all worked up, right? Over, they hear Hitler and Nazis. Oh my goodness. You're calling him Hitler? You're calling him a Nazi? No, I am not. what I'm pointing out is that he is using the same methods that Adolf Hitler used to grab power of Germany in the 1930s, and he's doing the exact same thing. What that means is that once he finishes this journey to grabbing power, it will be very hard for you, America, to let him go, to get him out of there. I see it all the time. I see people saying, this is going to be a tough 4 years. John Oliver, watching him last week. I love John Oliver. These 4 years are going to be tough. He's not going anywhere in 4 years. You couldn't get him. The first term was like tame compared to this. And you couldn't get him out then. You think you're going to get him out this time? You think you're going to have a Mike Pence to stand up and say, I'm not playing this game? You think JD Vance is going to do that? Come on. All right, hold on. I got to fix this thing. Ain't light. This is driving me nuts. There we go. Turn on now. Okay. I'm going to talk about this, and then I'll shut up, and Richard can take over the show. So, what Hitler did in the 1930s, the first thing he did, lots of propaganda, all that stuff, getting people, slowly took over the government, all that jazz. There was a big worry in Germany at the time that communism was going to take over. The Communist Party in Germany in the 1920s was gaining popularity, and people were really afraid of going down that route because after World War I and their dealings with the Russians and all that stuff, they did not want anything to do with communism. So Hitler kind of exploited that. He also exploited the racism towards the Jewish people. A lot of exploitation. But once he was in power, he basically tricked the German president. Was he the president or the prime minister? Yeah, he was the German prime minister. Basically tricked him into signing over and making Hitler the chancellor, where Hitler would not have to go through the normal channels of government in order to get things passed. He could just sign essentially what you would call an executive order and make things happen. And this was all done under the guise of, we're going to protect Germany from this communism that's rising. And a lot of people were for it. But the other thing he wanted to do was cut off Germany from the rest of the world, because he wanted the German people to be dependent on him. So the first thing Hitler did was he started to create tariffs around the world, anything that was imported in Germany. Now, he couldn't completely cut it off. He did have to get oil from outside of Germany. He did have to get some minerals to make something. I can't remember what. I should have made notes on this one, but I didn't. Anyways, I'm just looking at the article here. But anyways, that was the first thing he did. And through that, he was able to control all of the infrastructure in Germany, how everything was built, how everything was made, who got what food, who got everything. And through that, he was able to take control and make the people of Germany dependent on him, because he was the guy that was making the decisions. You needed something, you had to go to him. Your people needed something, you had to go to him. And you weren't going to go to him with like, hey, we need this thing. Because his thing would be like, well, what are you going to do for me? Does any of that sound familiar? Now, the thing that Hitler did do, he knew enough to not mess with people's pensions. He knew enough not to mess with people's income. Like there was what was it called? there was these basically there was these old ladies, old people in in Germany, and he knew that he had to keep some social programs in order so people wouldn't completely start revolting against him. Now that's the one thing that Trump isn't doing. Trump is going after Social Security. He's going after these tariffs that's going to cost Americans more money. And I've spoken to some Americans and they say, well, I actually like these more because it's better than income tax. He hasn't cut anyone's income tax yet. So right now you're paying double. You got your income tax and you're paying more for stuff. But basically what he wants to do is drive down, make you guys need him, take away everything that you have, all your power and everything that you say, take it all away from you. So then he has the power and he could do whatever the heck he wants. And the longer that it goes, the longer that you let it happen, every day that goes by, he's doing more and more and more to set himself up. And if Americans could actually see 10 feet past the front of their face, if they could actually see what's going on in the world, you could hear what people who have gone through a dictatorship, who were born in democracies and then switched to dictatorship and all that stuff, they'll tell you the same thing over and over again. You got to get rid of him right away. You can't wait, because the longer you wait, the harder it will be to get him out. So you got to do something about it. But unfortunately, Americans, they're just full of bread and circuses, right? That's what the Roman Empire did. That's another thing they did to keep staying in charge. You've heard of bread and circuses, Richard?
Bread and circuses?
So one of the ways the Roman Empire was able to spread. See, Americans don't know history at all.
And I'm guessing you just had this off the back of your head. This isn't something.
There's a Rolling Stones album from the late 60s
please.
called Bread and Circuses. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? When I'm like,
That's
I don't
cheating.
know. It's not cheating. It's curiosity. I was like 15 years old. I'm like, what does that mean? So bread and circuses is the Roman Empire would feed the people bread and give them shows like the like Gladiator, those kind of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just keep giving them bread, giving them circuses. They're lethargic. They won't bother you. They won't rise up against you. And we could do whatever we want.
I would love some bread and circuses.
What I'm talking about is it's called an autarky. Autarky. So it's a funny word that Richard can make fun of. An autarky. So it's spelled Autarky. Look it up. Look it up on a. Here's the other thing too. Don't just take my word. Don't take my word for any of this. Look it up. Find a reputable source of information. Don't just that's the one thing that breeds stupidity. Is that these people are going online and they're just listening to what some idiot has to say, and they sit there and they regurgitate it. I've witnessed it this week. It was just so ridiculous. This person on Facebook was just all just shouting. Well, I've been posting, political things. Although I say I'm raging against this friggin' craziness that's happened right now. So I don't think it's political, but they see it as political, and they're just shouting Russian propaganda points at me. And I know they're Russian propaganda points because they are word for word what Russia says. Stuff taken out of context, what people said taken out of context, stuff that just doesn't, if you would just sit and actually read and look at where stuff is coming from. Poor Dean. This is a terrible episode to tune into, Dean. I'm raging, Dean. Sorry. Remember when Amiibos used to be the thing? Remember when we used to get angry? I used to get angry about Amiibos. Look, that was the best days. No, I got back to doing a little selling of video games. There was this place, this mall, about 20 minutes away from me, and they were doing like a retro fair. Cost nothing for a table. I reached out to the guy on Facebook. I'm like, "You got any room?" "Yeah, I got room." "How many tables you need?" So I'm like, "Oh, a couple of tables." So I brought some stuff over, and I did have a lot of amiibos on my table. And I'll tell you,
Wait a minute, wait
amiibos.
a minute, wait a minute. Does that mean you purchased
No,
many
no, it's.
amiibos for yourself?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah. No, I was just as
Really?
dumb. I was just as dumb. I bought the amiibos. I had to get like
I don't
Samus and
remember
stuff
you
like that.
talking.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
okay, yeah. I thought you got like the ones that appealed to you, but
Yes,
a
I
lot.
did. Yeah, but I'm getting rid of them now.
Mhm.
Let's see. What is Kyle here? Half the country does want him gone. The problem is a lot of people seem to have forgotten when he said he was going to fix the election. Yeah, right.
Hmm.
Listen, he is playing a trick with the American people right now with the media. The media is pathetic in the United States. Pathetic. Like right now, their thing is that they hit. What they do is they go every day and they hit the American people with like stuff, constant stuff, and you can't keep up with it. It's just like, what the hell is all this? You don't even have one thing to focus on. Most Americans don't even know what's going on in Canada. They just hear like that was the other thing that Hitler did too. He was a big fan of it's called the big lie, right? If you tell a small lie, right? If you let's say a small lie would be okay, a small lie would be like the let's say that Trump and some of his cronies went into Pennsylvania and stole some ballot boxes, and then they covered it up, right? And then that comes out, well, he stole ballot boxes. The whole election's messed up. Get this guy out of here, right? But he doesn't do that. He does what Hitler did. He tells the big lie. The big lie, why even do all that work? That was Nixon's problem, right? Nixon tried to go into the Watergate Hotel and mess around and find stuff and all that. That's the small lie. The big lie is just to come out and say the whole thing's rigged. And it just creates confusion. Smart people are like, what the hell is he talking about? Dumb people are like, yeah, election stolen. Why didn't I shoot him? And then
I
people
like
in the
the
middle,
prospector.
the people in the middle, no, I know. I tried to tie it together, but it didn't work. Anyways,
Mm.
and the people in the middle, they're just confused. They don't know what the truth is. They're like looking around like, I don't know. Is it rigged? Isn't it? I don't know. Let's just vote for Trump. I don't like the guy who's in there now. Let's just vote for him. Anyways, I was talking about amiibos. My point with the amiibos is amiibos have been around since what, 2015? Has it been 10 years? I know it doesn't feel like 10 years, but I think
Probably
they've been
more
around.
than that, hasn't it?
They've been around for a long time. Since the Wii U. The Wii U came out in 2013. Might be more than 10 years. There were still people coming to my table that had no idea what amiibos are. They had no idea what they
Really?
do, how they function. They were just like, what? What are these? Why are they so expensive? What is this thing? There were people coming, like, you know how they had those pixelated amiibos that were like, it was like Mario and he was all
Oh
like
yeah, like the
squares.
retro look. Yeah.
People are coming up to the table. Oh, that's a Minecraft Mario. Oh, that's a Minecraft Link.
Wait, are these like older people, younger people?
Older people trying to explain to their
Okay.
kids what amiibos are.
Hmm.
And by older, I mean not quite as old as me, but not little kids. Little kids knew. Some of the kids, like older kids, like between 12, 13, like they would come up and they'd like, oh, those are like the Smash Bros. Amiibos. Not they knew what they were, but yeah, parents.
I'm still proud to say that I have never owned an amiibo.
Well, this is good to hear that Dean's Small Town is doing a great job of banding together to support one another. Frustrating times for sure. That's good to hear. And we got Chris here from Planet of the Tapes. Trump didn't get more votes, less votes, or cast overall. Yeah, well, the American electoral system, that electoral college, that whole thing, that's just a mess. That's another reason why Canada should just stay the heck out of there, because who wants to be part of that mess? I mean, the Canadian parliamentary system is not perfect. It does need some work. They keep trying to do election reform, but it is difficult to get people to change. It's always the same story. The people who are in power don't want to change the electoral system because it's working for them. And the people who are not in power are like, this needs to change, and it's just the same mess every time. Electoral college is a scam. I agree 100%. It makes no sense why 500,000 people in Wyoming have more say than what, like 40 million people in California, 40 million people. Like, it makes no sense.
That I'll agree with.
I came from Deadwood. These are the kind of impressions you get. I think I might go into voice acting. I think I might. My one character will be the prospector who's trying to get to the Klondike. Anyways, I think I made all my points. I think I said everything I needed to say. I think I just have to get this stuff off my chest. It's like, it's impossible. Like, I have not, like, every night, it's like the news is changing every 10 minutes. Well, at least every hour, you know? Sarah and I sit down and we're watching, I'll give you some recommendations of things to watch. There's the Midas Touch channel out of the United States. They're creeping up big time. I think they're almost catching Joe Rogan, because they are a level-headed, straight. I mean, of course, they have a bias, but their whole bias is how ridiculous everything is, how stupid everything is. And they tell you things there that the mainstream media is not telling you. Like, for instance, Richard, did you know that, and I wonder if the Americans in the chat know this, did you know that, and maybe they do because they watch Midas Touch, that a Russian cargo ship rammed into a United States war vessel? Did you hear about that?
No.
Why isn't that news? Why doesn't everybody know about that? That's just happened the other day. A bunch of Russians on a cargo ship intentionally rammed their big cargo ship, those big cargo ships that you see go through the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal or whatever, those giant ships, took it and they rammed it into an American warship. Now, the American warship was carrying fuel. Oh, here we go. Okay. Chris says, the problem with the Midas Touch channel is they were so cocky going into the election. I feel that kind of arrogance kept some liberals away from the ballots, like they had it in the bag. That's interesting to know. I just started watching them maybe in January when all this craziness was happening. And yeah, I do find that, yes, they do tend, I hate to tell you this, but it's a problem that all Americans have. They think that just by mocking what's happening is enough, and it's not. That's why, like, when you see all these protests happening in the world, like when stuff, like, you want to talk about the people who got their shit together when it comes to protesting, it is France. France does not put up with anything. France, like maybe about 10 years ago, they tried to change the retirement age from 63 to 65 in France. The French people shut the country down. They all stood up and said, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing this. And you know what happened? The retirement age in France is still 63. That's what America does not do. America just thinks, well, maybe I can call my congressman. And most of them don't even do that. They just sit around. And because American exceptionalism has been inbred into all of you to believe that you have the best system and it's infallible and everything's going to work out. There's checks and balances and nothing bad can happen. And these oligarchs just sit there and they exploit you. And you just continue to let it happen. But I still recommend the Midas Touch channel because they do point to some things that does happen. And yes, you're right in that criticism, Chris. Thank you for pointing that out. Another channel I do like, but he's for Canadians only. Yeah, you're right. Canadians don't fuck around. They lead the world in plastic reduction too. That's awesome. I think we lead the world in plastic production because so many people buy plastic from us. Look it up. It's crazy. That's why we're always like a little sensitive towards the whole carbon reduction thing, because we're trying to offset some of our bad habits. But pretty soon, our biggest customer for plastics is probably going to go away. So, what the heck was I talking about? I can't remember. Oh yeah, okay. The other channel I wanted to recommend for Canadians is Steve Boots. Steve Boots is a great. I just caught on to his channel a couple of weeks ago. It's Canadian centric. I mean, Americans won't care about it, but this is for the Canadians out there. Steve Boots. He's on YouTube. He's also on Twitch. He does live streams on Twitch and all that. He has a great way of breaking down what's happening in Canadian politics. He's not necessarily an alarmist. He's not like, I'm a big Mark Carney fan, who is today sworn in as our prime minister, 24th prime minister of Canada. He is not. He's a Mark Carney realist, and I appreciate that. I need to hear. I need my head checked once in a while when it comes to Mark Carney, because Mark Carney is going to be great. He's going to get us through this craziness that's happening right now. But he is an economist, and he is about making money. So you got to watch him. You can't just let him, just don't check the box on everything he does. You got to keep an eye on him. There you go. That's an hour of me blabbering on. What do you want to talk about, Richard? What have you been watching?
It actually got me curious now. Like, what's going on with Trudeau now? I didn't know that the switchover happened. I was asleep.
Oh boy. Let me take a swig here.
Like, what do you move on to when you step down as prime minister?
Can you add Canadian whiskey to water? Does that taste? Nah, you can't do that, right? Okay, so I think I kind of mentioned this before, but since you asked, so basically, let's go back to December for like the past, since the pandemic, really. What's happening in Canada is something that was happening throughout the entire world. The incumbent, whoever was in during the pandemic, has not been able to hold on to their leadership. It happened in America, right? Biden was the leader. He's overthrown everyone. Any incumbent is having trouble holding on to their seat. And a lot of it has to do with how people are upset with the way the pandemic was handled. They don't like it.
Oh yeah. I understand
stuff,
him stepping down. I'm asking,
right.
What is he moving on to? Like, what is he headed for now?
So the way it works in Canadian Parliament system is that we don't actually vote for a prime minister. We vote, it's completely different. We vote for the party, right? Mm-hmm. So the party is made up of ministers, members of parliament, right? So every member, so who you're actually voting for is in your area is a member of parliament to go to Parliament Hill and represent your area. And the party with the most seats becomes the party in charge. The party elects a leader. Mm-hmm. The party's leader was Justin Trudeau. Since the party's leader was Justin Trudeau, he becomes the prime minister. He's the guy who forms a cabinet, and a cabinet is basically, Americans have a cabinet, right? You call it the cabinet too, right? So he forms a cabinet, and they're the ones that run the government. They have to have a certain amount of seats to run a majority government. They can, if they have the most seats, but not enough seats to have enough votes go through, they can either say it like, we can't form a government, so Canadians go and vote again, or they can call a minority government, form a coalition with another party, and the two parties will run as a government. So basically, over the last few years, that is what's happened. Justin Trudeau had a minority government with the New Democrat Party, and those two parties ran Canada for the last few years. So, anyways, so Trudeau decided in December that he was not going to step down as leader of the party, and that meant that the Liberal Party would have to run an election, an internal election, to select another leader. Now, normally that would be one of the other members of Parliament would run as a leader, and a few of them did. A lot of them decided not to run because they were like our Minister of Foreign Affairs, because she was busy dealing with Donald Trump, and she's like, I can't run a campaign right now. But Mark Carney came in, and he ran as an outsider. He's not a member of Parliament, but he ran for the leadership, and he won. So he doesn't have a seat in the House of Commons. And it's really hard for a prime minister to run a government when you don't have a seat in the House of Commons. You can't be there to you're not allowed in the House of Commons when they're debating and stuff like that. It's happened a few times, but not for very long. It always ends up in an election. So basically, Mark Carney was elected as leader of the Liberal Party. Justin Trudeau officially he was elected as leader on Sunday. I almost burst into tears when he was elected, and almost, not quite. And today, Justin Trudeau officially stepped down. He went to our who's that guy? The Governor General of Canada. Governor General is the person that, it's kind of weird, but he's the one that's directly, he's supposed to represent the monarchy. Believe it or not, we're still tied in with the monarchy. So he represents, it's a she that represents King Charles. And the Prime Minister goes to the Governor General and says, I'm retiring, and I really strongly recommend that you take the leader of our party and make him Prime Minister. And it's just a functionality thing, kind of like what the Vice President does in the United States. And so Trudeau stepped down, Mark Carney has stepped in. And Mark Carney right now is currently the Prime Minister of Canada.
So back to my original question.
Yes.
What does Trudeau do now? What is he going to do now? Is he just a regular member of the cabinet?
There is a wonderful photo of Justin Trudeau. I'll see. Maybe I can find it for you.
That Halloween photo? I've seen that one.
No, not the old Halloween. And listen, I'm gonna say, if we want to talk about Justin Trudeau and the blackface,
I have nothing.
If you want to talk
positive or negative to say about the man,
listen. What you want to see from a person is growth. Okay, you want to see somebody grow. Okay, if he was still out there in blackface, I'm all with you. But the fact that he did it so long ago when he was a kid, and he comes out and he says, I was stupid for doing it now. That's growth. Don't you want to see a person grow? You want to see a person who was the same as they are when they were 16? Come on. Get real here. All right. Give me a second here. Bear with me for a second here. Okay.
Let's
see, is this a good one? That's not a good one. I'm gonna find you a good one.
Can you describe the photo to me?
I can, but it's much more fun if you see it. Maybe I can just zoom into this. Yeah, okay, I'll just zoom into this. Oh, am I gonna have to open this in Chrome? I am. Stupid Chrome. Just bear with me a second. I know this is great audio for all the listeners too. They get to see this stuff.
But if you bear with it, we get to see a picture.
Yeah. Oh, you'll like it. Okay, let me present.
Long vacation. See, I think Kyle's got it.
Long vacation.
Yeah, it's like, what was the guy in there? 9 years? So like, yeah, take a break. Let's go fishing.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, here it is. Here it is. Look at that picture.
You got Trudeau sticking his tongue out and carrying a chair.
That is a man who is ready to let it all go. He is done. He is done. Wasn't that worth the wait?
So is
That
this
is
him after he resigned?
Yeah. This was his last day in the House of Commons. That's his chair. Oh, well, in theory, that's his chair from the House of Commons, and he's taking it as a souvenir.
Oh, is he allowed to do that?
I don't know. But you know what? I'll let him do it. I'm going to allow it. I'm going to
You're
allow
just
it.
going to let your political leaders do whatever they feel like doing?
I'll let him have a chair. I will not let him do whatever it feels like he's doing, but I'll let him have a chair. He can have that chair. He's earned it. He has earned it. Especially after after all that. God, he was our prime minister through the whole COVID thing, that stupid trucker convoy thing, this stuff that's going on right now. The very least we could do is let him have a chair. But as far as I know, he is still the member of parliament member of parliament for the riding that he won. And he's so he'll be doing that. But I don't think he's running for re-election. I think he's going to take time with his family, his young family. He has a young family. You know, I think his oldest is 16, and he wants to spend more time with his kids. He went through a divorce during all this stuff. You know, so he's deserved some time off. So yeah, that's what he's doing right now. He's probably so over the next few days, because Mark Carney will probably call an election very quickly, because the Liberal Party. Here's the other thing too. So like I was trying to say before, but like the Liberal Party was dead in the water back in December, right? That's why Trudeau stepped down. There was a lot of negativity towards him. A lot of it was all made up stuff, you know. But people were just tired. They were tired of the status quo, right? They wanted change. Let's change. And then we saw what change got the Americans in the United States. And a lot of Canadians are like, maybe change isn't the greatest. And the guy running against the Liberal Party for the Conservatives, he's running on he was doing the whole Trump thing. Canada is broken. I'm going to axe the tax. And Canadians look at that and they're like, now's not the time. Now's not the time for this. Canada is broken stuff. Did I say Canadians broken? I think that whiskey's getting to me now. Canada's broken. So most Canadians are switching over to the Liberal Party. And, they have the momentum right now with all this Trump stuff and everything going. So it only makes sense when you go into election. If you have momentum, call an election, get it going. That's what Doug Ford did. Premier of Ontario called a snap election, lock in his position for the next 5 years. So who knows? Like, there's so much crazy stuff that could happen between now and October. So like the Liberal Party has to call an election by October, but they can call an election at any time between now and October. So he's going to call one as quickly as possible. We'll probably be voting for the next prime minister. Might be in April, but it'll probably definitely be May. What's this? Chris says Trump doesn't have a cabinet. He has a sheet with a pointed top and 2 eye holes. Yeah. And yeah, Kyle is offended by the stolen chair. I don't know if he stole the chair. I think he earned that chair. Dean says, I really like Trudeau. Got to whisper that since I live in Canada. Excited to see what Carney does. Yeah, I understand a lot.
Alberta.
What did I say?
You said Canada.
He lives in Alberta. Sorry.
You really are tipsy now, huh?
I don't really drink that much, so this was just like a gag. And I'm like, you know what? Because I actually went into the cupboard to get my big water bottle, and it's in with the whiskey. And so I was like, you're getting a drink? And I'm like, no. I'm like, wait a minute, that would be funny if I just poured myself a little drinky poo for that. Anyways, and I haven't eaten supper yet. So yeah, I liked Trudeau as well. Definitely some of the criticism against him, like even like this high-speed rail thing that they've come up with was just kind of ridiculous. I loved it at first, but then when you look at the logistics of it, they want to build a high-speed rail from Toronto to Quebec City, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense because there isn't as big of a population once you get past Montreal and you go further and further east to Quebec City. There isn't a big population if you go west to past Toronto towards the London area, Hamilton, Brampton. All those areas have way more people in it. So you got to ask yourself, why is the Liberal Party going out that way? Because they need those ridings. They need those seats in Quebec. And the best way to get seats anywhere is to make it look like as if you're going to be giving them a lot of things. And one of the things you could give them is high-speed rail. So, of course, they're going to vote for that. I think their initial part of their plan, it's something like $3.9 billion to investigate the thing, to look at it for the next 3 years. So for the next 3 years, they're going to spend $3.9 billion to investigate this rail structure. You don't need $3.9 billion over 3 years to investigate a rail structure. China has built stuff in like 6 months. We want to build high-speed rail. They get it done. That wasn't a Japanese impression, though. That was an impression of a Canadian doing a Japanese impression or a Chinese impression.
I said Chinese.
I can't do anything. I can't do anything anymore. I need to stop talking. I'm losing it. Or I need to drink more. I don't know. Oh, thanks. Chris saying I'm doing a good job with the political talk. Kevin, I've enjoyed your Twitter feed more than ever. Like I said, I feel like as if it's not political. I feel like as if I'm riding against something. I am raging against something specific. I'm raging against anything that is pro this. I don't, I never, I'm just so angry. That's what it comes down to. I'm just so angry with what's going on right now. And I don't want it to seem normal. It's not normal. This is not normal. This is not something you can just sit back and say, everything's great. It's not. Okay. That's all I have to say. You got anything, Richard? You want to add? Anything you want to talk about?
Nothing that would compare. It would just feel like a little sticky note on your.
Yes.
On the bright side, maybe you'll soon be able to get BC wine out in your neck of the woods.
Yeah. So Dean brings up a great point.
What was the thing about that? You can't ship. You said something about that before.
Yeah. So a lot of alcohol in Canada is not shipped from province to province, doesn't cross province to province because of taxes, right? Taxes on alcohol are a big moneymaker for each province. So any alcohol that's sold and they get tax money for, it goes to good stuff like schools and whatnot. But basically, if you are a restaurant in Gatineau, or let's say a Hull, which is right across in Quebec, right across on the other side of Ottawa, you can't sell alcohol to anyone in Ottawa, even though they're like maybe 50 kilometers away from you, maybe 20 kilometers away from you, because you are in Quebec and they are in Ontario. And Ontario wants those places to buy alcohol through the LCBO, the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. So they get the tax money And that's all it is. It just comes down to taxes. And it's been a ridiculous system forever. Companies, business people have been riding against it forever. It's actually easier on Ontario to get alcohol from Kentucky and from California than it is from Quebec or BC or wherever. It's just a ridiculous system. It all has to do with taxes. And as we are rejecting American products and encouraging more Canadian products, it looks like it's finally going to open up the provinces to inter-provincial trading. That's what it's called. And it's something that's been way overdue, way over long. Who cares if Quebec gets some of the tax money? Who cares if Saskatchewan gets some of the tax money? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. What matters more is that Canadians are strong, buying from each other and working together against this thing. So there you go. China uses slave labor. Yep, they do. They do. There's absolutely no doubt about that. The Chinese government is not ideal, but it is the world economic system that has been set up over decades. And to upturn it on a dime, like, look, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with Trump wanting
slave labor.
No, there's something wrong with slave labor. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with Trump saying, hey, slavery is bad in China. We shouldn't be buying products in China. We should put tariffs on China and get manufacturers to start making stuff in the United States. Fine. You want to do that? Okay. I get it. I get the logic. I get why you want to do it. The problem is you can't just snap your fingers and make it happen. You know, this is stuff. NAFTA was created over a decade in the 80s. It took them forever. And this is when manufacturers wanted this stuff to happen. And as it did, it still took them like 5 years to build a plant in Canada to get up and running so they can meet the supply for the demand. It wasn't just done and it happened. You got to give time for companies to, develop this stuff and all that. But listen, I'm telling you, the reason why he's doing all this, it has nothing to do with it. It has to do with him grabbing power. It has to do with him drumming into your skulls how terrible globalization is, how terrible globalists are, whether it makes sense or not. And him making you need him. So in 4 years, when your country is, the stock market is down even more points, maybe it's even crashed, your 401ks are crushed, you have no social security to look forward to, that you need him to get you through the following 4 years. And he'll say, hey, the only way we can get through the next 4 years, if you make me president again. And you'll say, yes, make him president. We need him. There is some logic to what he says. There is some ideal. I get it. But this stuff was built over decades. And you got to give people time to catch up. You got to give companies time to catch up. You can't just snap your fingers and make it happen. And the problem, it's fine that he wants to do that, but he will make America weaker by shutting themselves off from the rest of the world, from shutting themselves off of NATO, from shutting themselves off of free trade. It will make America more vulnerable. But American exceptionalism has you believing that it won't. Because you believe that you have the best system, everything's great, everything's awesome, everything is just like everything you do, it'll just be fantastic. You're better than anyone else. And you are good at a lot of things. Nobody can make movies like Americans can. A lot of them are garbage. But there are some that are real corkers out there. American rock and roll, it's good. There's a lot of good stuff. Your highways are awesome. I like your highways. A couple of bucks and you're on this big old highway. Your city infrastructure stinks. So does Canada's. But yeah, you got nice highways. You do a lot of good things, but you're not impervious to what can happen, what has happened throughout history over and over and over again. And the reason why you don't know it is because you don't take the time to learn about it.
I'd just like to
Polybus.
point out that Kevin is using the collective you, and he's not addressing me as an individual. For anyone who's just coming here to witness my beating.
Your beat down. Oh, no, Richard's one of the good ones. One of the good ones.
I'm also spoiled because I live in a country that has good health care.
Yes. Yes. Well, and there's another, see, here's the other thing too. America over the past, since World War II, has convinced many countries, a lot of countries, not to escalate their military. Don't escalate your military. America's got your back. You know what country? What country is like leading the way in de-escalation? You're in it, Richard. After World War II, Americans said, Japan, do not form a military, a strong military. They're not. I'm not saying that they're completely unmilitarized. They're military.
Well, no,
military.
Japan is not allowed to have a standing army.
Right. Because, and Japan said, well, what happens if China attacks us? What happens if North Korea attacks us? Don't worry. America's got your back. Do you think America's got your back right now? With this guy who's going to be like, why should we have to pay for that? Why should I have to pay for that? We're going to be, for what? Japan? What do we owe Japan? What do they owe us? What are they going to give us? Don't they have tariffs on this, that, and the other? Like tariffs are not 100% bad. Like Canada does have some strong tariffs, but they make sense when you actually look at them. And you're not just sitting there spewing out 200% tariffs on dairy. That's terrible, Canada. You're screwing us. We're not screwing you. We have 200% tariffs on dairy, so Canadians don't buy your dairy products and your poultry products and your eggs and cheese. And I know cheese is dairy, but for some reason it is considered another category for some reason. But the reason for that is to protect our food supply. So when you have things like the avian flu that has broken out in the United States and killing your egg market, you got no eggs down there, as Trump would say. You guys got no eggs down there. But we're fine. Our food supply is fine. Our eggs are fine. Milk, cheese, all that stuff is in case disease breaks out. Even in Canada, in case a disease breaks out in BC or in Alberta or in Ontario, the food chain, the food supply is localized and it won't affect all of Canada. It'll affect just a small region. And that is why there are huge tariffs on American dairy products in Canada. Even Dairy Queen here, they localize all of their milk. You go to Dairy Queen, that's why a Dairy Queen here might taste different than a Dairy Queen down in the United States, because it's all localized milk that they use. If they use milk at all instead of animal fat or whatever, But if they do use milk, it is Canadian. So not all tariffs are bad. Some tariffs make sense. But that was after, they thought this stuff out. They just didn't throw down a hammer and say 200% tariffs on all this stuff. And all these people who were buying stuff from the United States were like, what? Everything's going to be 200% now? And there's no infrastructure in Canada to supply the food stream. No. Supply chain was there. Then they put the tariffs on. That's how you do it. It'll be amazing if him or that Elon Musk makes it through 4 years. Honestly, Kyle, he seems to be ticking all the time. Nothing seems to slow that guy down. He's dodging bullets. He's eating McDonald's every day. He looks terrible. Somehow he keeps going. The miserable people, what it was Billy Joel said, only the good die young. These miserable people, they stay around forever. They go nowhere.
Hey, Gene Hackman made it.
Oh, the slave market was in regard to the high-speed rail construction. Yes. My point was about not necessarily the construction, but the planning to make a rail system. They just said, we're going to make a rail system, and it starts happening. They didn't need 3 years and billions of dollars to sit there and plan.
Well, that was his point, though. He think they could do that because they have the slave labor.
Well, the plan is like they're trying to figure out where to put this rail line, right? So they're figuring out doing all the surveying and all that stuff, and what areas they can go through and what areas they have to go around and all that stuff. It doesn't take 3 years to do that. I understand the construction part of it. I don't know. Maybe slaves are doing some awesome surveying. Maybe they're awesome surveyors too. I don't know. But sure, like maybe it'll take 6 months instead of immediately. Maybe it'll take 4 months. I don't know. But it seems to me like billions of dollars to survey land and take 3 years. And here's the thing. After 3 years, Trudeau's no longer there. This thing's probably not going to be okayed by the next government. So Dean wants to know, it doesn't have to be this podcast, but curious to hear your thoughts on what we should be doing with our oil. Lots of opinions in Alberta, taxing, limiting, refinery. I'll say this about oil. I couldn't get into any specifics about that because I haven't looked into it, and I'm not a person who pretends to know everything. But I will say that the thing that makes me nervous about oil is that it is not a commodity that I don't think it has much legs as more and more countries switch over to renewable energy and renewable sources of power, which are the same thing. I don't know why I said it like that, but I think oil prices have been coming down a little bit, right? And the reason why we weren't able to start digging up the tar sands in Alberta for the longest time is because the price of oil was so cheap. It wasn't until it reached, I think it was $50 a barrel, that it finally made it economically feasible for us to start doing that. And I think oil is not going to have, I'm not talking like within the next 10 years or anything like that, but I think it's realistic to see within the next 25 years or that oil consumption going down and supply and demand. So to hinge our economy on that commodity is probably not a great idea. I am all for the right now in the immediate. I am all for like Doug Ford did, cut the power. I'm all for putting taxes on oil and all that stuff. I am for listen, Americans are volatile right now. If you're going to build if you're going to have a trading partner, you need someone you can trust. You can't have someone who's just going to change his mind the next day. And then you got another month of we got to scramble and do this thing now. You can't do that. Got to move on from the United States. Got to cut ourselves off from the United States. And I think what they're doing right now, they're trying everything, like all the premiers, and I think Mark Carney, when he eventually gets there, they're all going to try their best to make these tariffs go away. But I don't know if Trump will be receptive to that at all. I mean, he wants to annex us, right? That's what it's about. It's about crushing our economy so he can come in and take over. We are his Crimea. Crimea? I don't know. That part of Ukraine that's really, really rich that he took over in 2014. That is basically Southern Ontario is that to him. That's where you would start. You take over Southern Ontario. That's where the Golden Horseshoe is. It's the richest part of Canada. Take over that, and then the rest of the country suffers as you don't have that money coming in, and basically crushes our economy. I think that's what's in his head. So we got to play hardball. That's why we can't be soft like Mexico. This whole thing, like Canada, you should be soft on this. Mexico is not being threatened with annexation right now. Not yet, anyways. Maybe they will be. But they can afford to play this tariff game. They can afford to be a little lax on that because they're not being threatened with this takeover business. So that's why we have to play hard. And Canadians do play hard. That's why it's still inbred in our hockey, That's the whole thing. Elbows up, that whole thing. They hit you, you hit them back twice as hard. Canadians have always been like that. You want a good story about Canadians hitting back twice as hard? Go on Google, look up World War I, Canadian soldiers, and soup cans. Fascinating story there. I got Richard curious. He's already looking it up. I'll tell you the quick
research.
I'll tell you the quick synopsis though. Basically, Canadians in World War II were always given the crappiest detail by the British soldiers. We were still under the British monarchy. We were still not a sovereign. Well, I mean, we were a sovereign nation, but we were still heavily under the British monarchy. And the British would tell us where to go and what to do and all that stuff. They were leading how we would fight. And Canadians got hit hard by, the Axis forces using gases, all sorts of that stuff. It was Canadians that died in those things. So during Christmas of one year during World War II, there was a mini, like, hey, let's not fight. It's Christmas Day kind of thing. The shutdown of like the fighting. And so Canadians, being Canadian, they would throw soup cans over to the German soldiers. And German soldiers were very cagey at first. They were like, oh, soup cans. Like they would throw them into no man's land, right? But, there's not supposed to be any shooting. So they'd send one guy. The Germans would send one guy out, pick up a soup can, come back in. He didn't get shot. Next guy comes out, picks up a soup can. He doesn't get shot. Next guy comes out. Okay, hey, yeah, it's going good. So these German soldiers, they knew that they were not getting fed properly. And so then the German soldiers started asking for more. Give us some more. Give us some more soup cans. So Canadians threw some more stuff over there. All the German soldiers come out into no man's land to grab what it is. And what did they find? Live grenades. On Christmas Day. That's who Canadians are. That's who you're up against. I'm telling you.
Not me.
Not you. You're good. You're good. Anyways, yeah, I'm all for taxing, limiting, all that stuff. I don't know if Dean's Premier Smith, I mean, she's a bit of a Trump. She was all Trumpy. There was a lot of Canadian politicians that ran on the whole Make America Great Again thing. It's especially in Alberta. It's very big in Alberta. Not where Dean is in Banff. I mean, they're basically tree huggers up there. They're all for the environment. They all work for natural resources companies. Dean's in the good part of Alberta, but Calgary, Edmonton, oh, those are tough towns. Tough towns. Anyways, are you sick of me talking yet, or are we done?
It really depends on how much more whiskey you can drink and still be coherent.
I only had a tiny little bit. You can see the majority of it is still there. I should have done a line. There. I just had a little snip. And no supper yet, so. Anyways, I'm not going to apologize for this episode. Like I said, when we return to normal, Retro Fandango can return to normal. This is not normal. That's why you're not getting a normal episode. I didn't even discuss this with Richard. I'm just taking it over. I annexed Richard's decision.
Oh, I could break out my stuff here, but I really didn't do all that much in the past 3 weeks. So
Honestly, neither have I.
the show
I
is
mean, I
yours
did.
today.
I did actually like doing stuff has kind of been keeping my mind off things once in a while. Like I set myself up with the Xbox 360 and the PS3. I don't know if I ever told you this, but the PS3, I had some huge problems with it. Like it was not going online and all this stuff. It had all these problems. So while I was getting stuff ready for this show, I'm reminded again as I look at all this stuff. I have all these PS3 games, and I have this Jax collection, Jax and Dexter collection that I keep meaning to get to. That's on the PlayStation 3.
Oh, for a second, I thought you meant Jax, like the ball and Jax game.
No.
It's like, what kind of collection is that?
Kyle says, be careful if you get a present from Kevin, is what I'm hearing.
Come on over for some corned beef and soup.
Only if you gas me first. That's the thing, right? It's always like after Canadians are struck first. You strike us first, we'll come back at you twice as hard. Like those Americans trying to fight in that hockey game. America came out, dropping the gloves first. Canadians took charge of the next two fights, hit them twice as hard. That's what Canada does. Anyways, what the hell was I talking about? I don't remember. Oh, yeah. Oh, so the PS3. Basically, I had problems with the PS3. So I took it and I souped it up. I had problems with the PlayStation 3 controllers. They wouldn't sync, or they were dead. This was before I moved. I had 3 of them. They all died on me. But I was okay, right? Because the PlayStation 4 controller works with the PlayStation 3, which it does for a lot of games. But for most games, it doesn't, which I found out later after I threw out all those PS3 controllers. And one of the games it doesn't work with is the Jax and Dexter collection, which makes no sense because that's a first-party title, and it doesn't work. So I got myself a little dongle, stuck my dongle into the PS3, and now it reads the PlayStation 4 controller as a PlayStation 3 controller. So I'm able to play Jax and Dexter. And then I took out, I always had problems with the hard drive in there. And I had this old hard drive from a laptop. And I took the hard drive out of the PlayStation 3 and I put a 1 terabyte drive into the PlayStation 3. So I feel like I got like this super PS3 running right now. So I did that. And then also my Xbox 360, I broke that out as well. And I put an external hard drive on the Xbox 360 because I'm selling that Star Wars Xbox 360. And I was using the hard drive from that Star Wars.
Was that the R2D2 one?
Yeah. And it came with the Kinect and the dancing Han Solo and Darth Vader game.
You're getting rid of the dancing Han Solo?
It's still sealed. That game's still sealed. So it's in, and so I had to take that hard drive out and put it with the R2D2 console, and it still hasn't sold. But I needed a hard drive I had another Xbox 360 that just had 4 gigs of flash memory on it. So I put an external hard drive onto the Xbox 360, and I got that hooked up. I got them hooked up to like this old Sony 1080i television. It looks great. It looks great on there. I've also heard where people have put solid state hard drives in these machines, and they make them make the games load faster and that. I just took whatever crap I had lying around. But yeah, you can get like a solid state hard drive, half a gig for like $40 right now until the trade war ramps everything up. But yeah, that's not a bad upgrade for these old consoles. So I've been messing around with that. Not necessarily playing games, but just messing around with the machines because it takes my mind off things. That's it. Nothing to add? You got nothing? You don't want to talk about anything?
Well,
You're done?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm preparing myself for next time. It's like now I know what I'm in for. Now I know how to research and prepare for next episode.
Well, listen, look up Polybus. Polybus. Interesting guy. That's your homework. And
I'm more interested in watching the Canadian heritage moments. I want to see the quality of acting and things.
Oh, listen. It's not great. It's not great.
Just looking at a few thumbnails, I'm getting an impression here. Canadian
production quality has dramatically improved since those heritage minutes were made, but those were the lean years for
these are how old are these?
All
these
80s?
clips I'm seeing were posted 9 years ago, but when were they made?
Late 80s, early 90s. Maybe most of them were made in the 90s.
Okay.
Kyle says
that's going to make it more appealing.
Kyle says Bloodstone 007. It's on both systems. Highly recommended for the cinematic James Bond experience. I couldn't agree more. Kyle, I played that game and I really enjoyed it. I played it on the Xbox 360. It was good times. It was very it was a cover-based shooter, right? It was good. I guess I did like fire up like Fracture. I don't know if I talked about that game on the 360. It's where you can
yeah, you like manipulate the environment.
The environment. I finished off that game. I also finished off these were games that they were on these old systems and I played them like halfway, and I didn't I also played Motorstorm. The last Motorstorm that came out, I can't remember the name of it. It was more like cell shaded graphics on the PS3. It's so weird. Like I had that game and I made it so far in it, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just like mess around and play with this game. And after like an hour and a half, I had finished the game. I was like, wow. I just stuck with it, and it was just a little bit more. All right. That's it. I'm done. Thanks everyone for listening. Don't forget to give a beatdown onto your government if you're American. Don't forget to keep your elbows up if you're Canadian. And don't forget to be Richard if you're in Japan. Just be Richard. That's all I ask.
That's what I do.
You're keeping me grounded. So we got Game Time with Kyle was in the chat. Dean, the video game library was in the chat. And we had Planet of the Tapes, Chris, in the chat. Thanks for all the questions, guys. And that's it. I'm going to say goodbye.
Bye.
There you go. There we go.